So we'll get started. Dana's going to lead us off with all of your questions. So thanks.
Yeah, I really appreciate everybody sending in their questions ahead of time so I know what they are and I can just kind of put them here in order for Ida. So first off, I'm just going to start with some of Michelle's questions. Michelle, you had really great questions. I'm going to start off with your first one, and that was, what does contact look like in Western dressage?
Oh, wow. She has to start with the easy one, right? Michelle, how are you today? Good to see you. Well, we have to talk a little bit about the bridles and the bits because in Western dressage, you might be in a bosal, you might be in a bitless bridle, you might be in a curb, you might be in a snaffle. So we talk about contact. We use connection a lot. It's the same idea, it's the same word, but we use connection a lot, trying to talk to people about how their contact to the bridle is going to be, which is kind of interesting. So, let's say that you have kind of, because we have hundreds of breeds of horses. So let's say you have a cool warm blood out there and you're riding at Western dressage, and maybe you've got a really nice regular um, snaffle in there, a regular English looking snaffle kind of thing, and you've got some nice flat leather reins. And that horse is used to being ridden up into kind of a dressage contact, kind of like ridden onto the bit and into the rein, and it has a little feel in the bridle all the time. That's awesome. Totally okay, because if the horse is over the back on the bit in the right balance for that horse's level and for that conformation, and it doesn't, as long as there isn't disharmony and you don't have all the problems that you can have, all the bad things, but the horse is easily on the bit, looks harmonious, mouth closed, everything's happy, that's a 10. Now, I might also see in the same class, and it might be in basic level, it might not even be in level 5, I might see a horse come in a curb, and the rider could be riding two-handed, no problem. And it's flexed the bit a little bit, and that horse gets round to the bit. And what in dressage would have said on the bit, it sets its head, it gives in the jaw and the pull, it arches its neck so that its back bascules and it begins to engage behind, and it's not on the forehand, its mouth is closed, and the rider flexes the bit and relaxes the contact a little bit so that the lever arm relaxes. And now that horse is in what you would think of traditional, old-fashioned, traditional French classical dressage, because it's inside of the bridle in self-carriage. If it's doing it well and it's correct for its level and everybody's harmonious and it's not on the forehand and blah, 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 that's a 10. That's a 10. So maybe you're in a bosal and you're riding your horse. Now, bosals are a little different for us because, you're not really supposed to lean on a bosal. It's sort of like a rope halter. You're not supposed to drag a horse by a rope halter. You're supposed to flex it. The horse is supposed to give, and they give, and you give, and you're not supposed to be dragging on it all the time. So a horse is going to supposedly stay inside of a bosal, and you're going to flex it and give it and flex it and give it, and it keeps giving, and it learns to give, and it learns to give, and it gets round to the connection, i.e. on the bit, although there's no bit. So that doesn't look quite the same, and your reins are probably used a little bit differently, but it's because of the bridle and because of how we're setting that horse's head. And the same thing is going to happen, the bitless bridles that we're allowed to use. The interesting thing about those is you really see horses take more traditional dressage, European contact on those. The ones that I've seen that were really good, and I've seen a couple of high level ones that didn't have a bit in and were doing great. And they were really kind of on the rein and in contact. Now, I know this is a long explanation, but I'm hoping you're beginning to see that contact, or in contact is the very Englishy dressage word, and we don't use it a ton. We use it some, but not as much as they do, because our idea is that because of our bits and because of our bridles, we may not be pushing our horse onto a bit. So connection is really, is the horse in balance? Did it come round to the bridle? Is it over the back? Is it using its hind legs? And is it getting off the forehand? It's beginning to use its core, i.e. lift up its thoracic. If it's doing that, then that is good connection. And that connection is just like being on the bit in dressage or in Western dressage, like, you know, baby horses are going to be kind of strung out a little bit. And the more they become collected, the more they become uphill and they begin to bascule more. So connection or contact looks really different based on the three things, which are your equipment, your horse's conformation, and its level of training or its experience. And that, I think, is maybe one of the only things that's a little confusing for people, because they come in and based on the equipment that the people are using and the age or experience of the horse and what's happening, it can look different. And it does look different, and it is different. It can be quite different. But the thing is, that's all okay as long as they're all doing it well. It's acceptable. So for you, I think you were asking, well, were you thinking the question really is, what should my contact be with my horse? But my answer to that for you is, if it was a very specific question, is we would look at your horse, we would look at your level of work, whatever level you're working on, and then we'd look at his conformation, and then we could assess, is that correct for your horse? And then the answer is yes, no.
I love that, Ida. And Michelle, if you're on and you want to come off of mute, did that answer the questions that you had about contact?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm riding a off the track thoroughbred. She's 15. Um, and so I'm riding her Western Dressage, and we're just starting out. We've been practicing for about a year and a half. And so we're doing intro level, and she is happier on the Hackmore than going with, a bit. But I've had comments about more contact, and usually the shows I'm at are a mixed show, so you've got the English and the Western, and so
Yes.
sometimes I wonder if they're thinking more in the English contact versus the Western contact, because there aren't as many of us there who are Western riders. But it does make sense that, I was wondering, do you take into consideration what a thoroughbred's going to look like versus a quarter horse? It's not quite exactly the same.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, you do. Yes, it is a yes, although nobody gets a pass, because every horse can make itself round within its own conformation. Every horse can go on the bit unless they're unsound. Okay, so unless a horse is unsound, a horse can go round to the bridle or set its head or go on the bit, whatever word we're going to use, connection, be in a correct connection, but i.e. on the bit. If they're telling you that you don't have contact, they want you to set your horse's head more.
Yeah.
And, here's the thing. I'm not judging now. I'm wearing my coaching hat. I'm allowed to say different things, but on that paper, they actually restrict us, the English judges and the Western judges. There are things that we are not allowed to write, and people don't know this. There are words, and they give us lists of words that we're allowed to use, stuff that we're not allowed to say. So when they were saying contact, they were going, get him on the bit, get him on the bit. The only problem with is in intro, it doesn't say that you have to be on the bit. It says that you will be freely forward and your horse will accept light contact or light feel on the reins. And even Western dressage and English dressage is kind of euphemistic. It's a little unclear. But the thing is we want you to begin to lower the horse's neck and make it come a little give through the jaw in the pull, because you have to get that position for the horse to become ergonomically, biomechanically correct to lift its thoracic and have backswing. And so when they said contact, either your reins were completely loose and they were slopping, or they wanted you to set his head a little bit, and they can't use those words either. That's a no-no in dressage to use the word set their head. That's bad. They don't allow that. But you
Yeah.
know, I'm over here coaching and we're trying to talk quickly and use a few shortcuts, but they wanted you to get him rounder so that he would come over the back. And so when they kept saying contact, either your reins were loose, which I doubt on a thoroughbred. I don't think
No.
no, I didn't think so. So then you just set his head. He needs to lower his neck so that he comes through his back more. Because if their back is up too high in the beginning, before they're engaged and before they learn how to carry themselves, it's sort of like being your posture like an arched back. He has his neck up and his back is arched downward. So if he lowers his neck, then he comes a little more through his back, and then he begins to use his hind legs better. And then there's a chance, if we keep positioning him correctly, that he will develop his core and lift his thoracic, which is the last part of the engagement and learning uphill and, you know, carrying himself in the ergonomic balance he has to be in. So they had to use the words in dressage. They're only allowed a few words: connection or contact. And they're trying
Okay.
to say, set his head, get at it. And you know, you may need some cross training for that. And of course, I'm not going to talk about it much here because that's a whole different, but you know, if somebody decides to lunge a horse in side reins, you either need to be schooled how to do it or get a professional to teach you how to do it. But is it good cross training? Yes. If you can long line a horse, if you're talented enough to long line a horse where you can actually set its head, if you're that good at it, long lining and lunging horses on side reins. And when I say lunging, I don't lunge horses more than 12 minutes. So this is not, don't write in, folks, because we only lunge 12 minutes. But you may need some cross training for that horse to ergonomically come in the balance that you want him into without weight on his back. So he can develop the muscle and he can develop his confidence without a rider, if that's possible. And if it's not, if for some reason that horse just cannot do this, and there are horses that can't, they can't. They've had accidents, or they're not sound, or they're emotionally upset about it, then you'll have to do it riding. But either way, try to use some cross training if you can, if it works. And otherwise, they were trying to push you in that direction.
Right. And that does help clarify, because I was thinking of just in the mouth, just in the bit, but now as you explain it with the whole body, and she's a long back girl, and you know, we're working on building, like you said, the strength, because she'll go and make that contact and start to carry herself, but it's hard for her, so we're still, you know, building her strength and things. But thank you, that does clarify.
Good, good.
I love that. And then one last thing I wanted to touch base is one of Michelle's questions that is really good too, is how fast should a working trot be?
Okay, now remember, we're kind of talking about, so are you doing working trot or are you doing working jog? Are you doing Western equitation or dressage, English dressage? So which one are we in here?
Oh, Western dressage, so I guess it'd be
Okay,
working
jog.
jog. Yeah.
Working jog. Well, we're just checking so that, because I also have lots and lots of dressage students, so I didn't know everybody's welcome to come on these calls. So I want to be sure I'm using the right vernacular and we're all on the same page. So here's the thing that's kind of tough about Western dressage is that people come into Western dressage and they're thinking Western, like Western pleasure, or they've seen ring riding, equitation, and pleasure and trail at open horse shows, Western, which is traditionally very, very slow moving. The lope and the jog are traditionally very slow moving, to the point where, you know, sometimes the horses are really kind of positioned downhill. So they come into Western dressage and it says Western, and they're like, I've been doing Western forever. I'm an expert on Western. And I'm like, wow, this is Western dressage, Western dressage. That's put it together. It's a thing. The problem with deciding about your jog is that in the levels below collection, the horse is ergonomically not in the right position to produce collection and engagement. When a horse produces a collection and engagement, the jog or the trot slows naturally, and it's very easy to sit to because now you have a very supple back. Before that, and this is why we allow posting in Western dressage, you may or you may not have that slow jog, because based on your horse's own God-given gaits, he may or she may or may not be able to have a slow jog that's active enough to get them over the back, you know, to get, see, they use their neck like this, and they pull their back up. So when you begin to lower a horse's neck and then you ask it to come like this, it arches the back. So you want the horse to lower its neck, but you don't want its nose to go below its below its withers. Then if the horse uses itself correctly and arches its back correctly, you have back swing, you begin to have engagement, which is the hind legs take weight, and it lifts its thoracic. It begins to use its core correctly. So the thing about Western dressage is we're still trying to teach the horses to work in postures that don't irritate their bodies or break down their bodies. We're trying to preserve the correct posture in order for them not to injure themselves. And we're like a person, we're trying to get them to use correct posture so that everything they do is easier, they become more supple, and they're easier to ride. So that's why all of this head setting and keeping them active. Now, I know I'm wandering around, but what you're asking me is how fast should the jog be? And how fast the jog has to be is based on how forward you have to put that horse until it begins to use its back, which depends on the breed. You know, a Shetland pony might be out there going, and it might be looking a little quick, but for that horse, he begins to stretch forward and arch his back, and then he sets his head. And for him, that's his, for dressage, his working trot or his working jog. Now, my goodness, if you took maybe a great big warm blood out and it was going, well, that's not going to work for this long-bodied horse. So this is based very much on the size of your horse and its own natural gaits and how much elasticity, how much it naturally clears the ground in the jog is going to look very different. And this is a thing that we educate our judges on, and they are amazing because we had, I think they told us 63 breeds in the online international this year. We had 63 breeds, which meant that these horses in their natural jog all look quite different. And what's the important part about the jog? You need to go forward enough to get your horse on the bit. So you have to go forward enough to get your horse on the bit and not be on the forehand. So you can't be a peanut roller. No peanut rolling, because the pole is always supposed to be the highest point. And we're not talking about the tips of their ears. We're talking about the crown piece. Their crown has to be above the withers. When I see you guys coming down towards me like this on the center line, and I can see the saddle pad and the swell and the horn and your belt buckle, I'm going, where's the horse's head? It's below his withers. This is ergonomically very bad for the horse. We're all on the forehand. We're not using our core. They're not on their hind legs. They can be jogging along, okay? It looks kind of active, but if you really start looking at it, you see that they're not actually bending their hind legs. And a lot of them are short tracking. They don't actually come very close to tracking up. Y'all know what tracking up is, right? You're familiar with that? Okay, yeah, good. We want to be sure we're aware of that. So you'd like to know really what your question is what's my horse's working jog going to look like? And that's something that somebody can assess with you, like in a Zoom meeting or like in a virtual lesson, maybe a live lesson with a trainer, but that's gonna, or, you know, you can send in a test and get a test evaluated by somebody, and they can say to you, hey, on, you know, and if you say, if you're having a lesson where you're learning, you send in a test, but it's a learning lesson, then they can say to you, you have to go a good deal faster, or you have to steady this horse up, it's a little too fast. But
Yeah,
every,
that's helpful. Yeah. Because like I said, I have a thoroughbred and I might be in other horses I'm watching, like a quarter horse. And it's like, well, that horse was going half as fast as mine. How come they're telling me I'm too slow? But now I understand what you're saying, and it kind of connects to when they were saying more contact. They're talking about the whole body. And for her, what does the active body mean? So that's helping me, because I am new to the sport, and understanding, like, what is the judge looking for? Is it a specific speed? What am I going for? But now that makes sense. Thank you.
they're looking for the posture, yeah, and the balance. And when that happens, there's this moment, Dana can tell you about this. There's this moment you get them forward enough so that they begin to go into the bridle, and then your little half vaults can work, and they set their head, and then all of a sudden it's like this click, and there's these magic moments that you get this cool jog. Dana, tell them about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you finally get that feeling, like, don't feel like you're alone. I used to get the same comments, and it just, I had to learn what steady connection was, because I did not have steady connection. I had connection, and then I would let go and have no connection. And it actually, my horse Wrangler, he did not like that. He actually started to perform better and be a lot softer in the bridle when I learned what steady connection was and how to have elasticity. But yeah, you get those moments, and I always say it's like riding a cloud. It just like feels so awesome. So yeah, that's awesome. And so yeah, that was a great description for all of those questions. I enjoyed that. I'm going to move on here talking about gaits. Welcome back, Emily. I always love your questions. So we have one here about lateral walks.
Oh,
And so how badly does a lateral walk impact your score, and how do you improve it?
well, two very good questions, because they are strong concerns for people. And a lot of the problem with the lateral walk is that it depends on how bad it is. So when a horse is really truly lateral, it is going to look like a pace. When that happens, for sure, the judge has to give a 4 or a 3 on that movement if it's that bad. If it really looks like a pace, both feet are going at the same time. If it's a little bit like that and it's just not so much from the side looking like a V, then a judge is more likely to say, most judges are trained to only use the word lateral, to either say that if it's a pace, they give a 3 or a 4, usually a 3 though. Lateral tendency could be 4 to 5 in score. If it is kind of going that way a little bit, but it's not really, it's just that the rhythm clarity is not super clear. And I have to say, a lot of horses are affected by the environment. If they're just a little bit tender in their feet, it can be, we have a lot of older horses, they have a little tiny bit of navicular, whatever, that can affect them. Or how about the footing isn't the same as usual? Like you went in the showgrounds and the footing isn't the same as you have at home. Or anything that causes tension, like they're stressed, they start looking at whatever's down there past the judge's booth, anything. They're anticipating the lope depart because it's coming. And I used to be a ring horse. So all of those kind of things, there's lots of things that can affect the rhythm of the walk. So a lot of times, rather than it actually saying lateral, it just says walk rhythm not clear, which isn't real clear about how unclear it is. But when I see that, when somebody when I write that on somebody's paper, it's sort of 5, 5, or 6. It's usually a 6 because it's just affecting the horse, and I don't know if he's anticipating the next move or he's a little concerned with the rider taking up the reins because they're working on learning how to be elastic. But as they take them up, they're so stressed that they're, I mean, I remember when I rode when I was a kid and I was nervous. I remember one time I got a paper from a judge that said it looked like I had a death grip on the reins. And I'm thinking there's times I wouldn't write that on somebody's paper, but I would like to because I can see their white knuckles. I can see that they're not breathing. I know that they're nervous, and I wouldn't mean it to be mean, but I have been there. I have had a death grip on the reins when I took them up. So that can affect the horse. So um the other thing to look at, which I don't know, I'm not judging today, I'm coaching. When a trainer or a owner or a rider knows that they have a horse that has some difficulty with this, you can look around for tests that have less walk. Really. One of those intro tests has several walks, right? And there's the working walk, and then there's a free walk, and then you go around and you do it in the other direction. Well, there are some tests that just have one medium walk and one free walk. And if you know for sure that you cannot fix this and it's going to be a 4, then you only want to take 2 movements of that. And you better be sure the center line's really good and everything else is really good to make up for it. And you see horses at the Olympics that have this. It's very common that a horse has a problem with the walk and they are really talented horses and they make up it in other ways. It does show up a little bit in your gait score, but it really depends on how lateral your walk is, how bad the score is going to be. But if it loses a little rhythm, it tends to be in the 6. They not usually 6.5 is a little high. So if we have a little rhythm problem, 6, maybe 5.5. But then if it's really lateral, then it's going to go down. Now fixing it, that's another whole ball game. And books have been written on that. And that, like, only the best trainers can ever repair this. But there are some generalities which I can run through really quick. It depends on what causes this with your horse. The 2 biggest things, absolutely positively, are how sound the horse is, and that can be foot problems, or the saddle hurts it, or the bit's bugging it, or it bruised its foot, it's got some scratches, it's got a hangnail. I mean, literally anything that makes the horse uncomfortable can be a problem while they're walking. Or it can be tension, anticipating what's coming next, anticipating you taking up the reins. It's not comfortable in its own, you're trying to get on the bit and it's not really comfortable. Maybe you guys don't have an elastic connection yet. So those are the 2 biggest problems. When a horse really is sort of lateral or tends to be that way, and let's say that you just brought a horse in and you went, here, can you fix it? Things that we do are try to walk it unrestrained. So one of the things I would do is I would lunge it at the walk, looking at it. I would see if I pushed it, did the walk get better? I'd be looking at the rhythm. If I push it, exactly what speed on this horse does the rhythm get clearer? So you're going to have smart trainers or yourself evaluating this. Can we figure out how much energy this horse needs to be having to see if we can take it gets better? Because a lot of horses are bad in the medium walk or the working walk, and then they go to free walk and the rhythm gets better. So that tells you that unrestrained or more forward, or their neck wasn't in the right position. And you're going, wow, that's cool. It takes a lot of experimentation and it takes patience and a good eye. And sometimes you can figure it out. Other things that trainers have done, and when you read books about this, about repairing this, it says that only the very best trainers are ever successful at this. I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that. One thing I know for sure is I don't walk these kind of horses downhill a whole lot because almost all of them have front feet problems. that have this real bad. I'm not saying your horse does, but a lot of them do. So I don't do a lot of downhill work, and I'm very careful of their feet. But in a flat ring, sometimes walking over poles can help you that are spaced correctly. Or traditional dressage trainers talk a lot about, and this is a problem because it's an advanced move, but walking a horse and shoulder in. And shoulder in gets the thoracic up. The horse really has to be in the bit. It has to be on the bit and uphill in order for the shoulder in to work and for it to correct the walk rhythm. But these are things that trainers do use and riders can use if they're at that space in their life. These are ways to do it. It's not uncomplicated. Does your horse have a real bad problem with this, or is it just occasionally once in a while?
It's kind of more the anticipation thing that you were talking about, because he did used to be a horse that would go into like the flat classes and ranch classes where the walk sometimes turns into a forgotten gait in other disciplines, not dressage. And I kind of developed a bad habit of letting him do whatever at the walk and not really focus on improving it or really riding it. And so I think it is more of like a mental suppleness thing, and it's not severe, but when I'm looking at all the ways I'm losing little points in each test, that's one of them, is just improving the walk, especially when I go from free walk to gathering the reins.
Okay.
It's a little worse at that moment.
Some more things then. So this is not my judging hat. This is my coaching hat, ladies, because coaching and judging, those are two different things. When you take up the reins on a horse, they can get really, really stressed if you actually have their neck absolutely, positively straight, which, you know, theoretically, you should be able to take up the reins with the horse's neck absolutely straight, and you should take the reins up evenly. If you're a 10 and if the world is perfect and the horse is perfect and you're a perfect rider and nothing is ever going wrong, and you know, it's kind of like being sinless. It isn't possible. You know, like really? But really good trainers, I don't know a really good trainer who doesn't, when they pick up the reins, lateral pull flexioning the horse to the outside. Like, and we're talking about, see, I'm straight to you now, and I went like that. Like literally, we're talking like you turn that horse's head like just to see the eye on the outside, and you take those reins up slowly. And really slowly. You got to get better at taking up your reins. So some of these exercises, if your horse truly isn't lateral, which you're saying it was tension, then having the horse have some pull flexion one side or the other, and before you even begin to bring him up, how about he stretch down there and you get the lateral pull flexion so that when you bring him up, they're kind of inside of the bridle, and then you ease them out into it. Now Dana got stuck in her riding lesson today. Can I tell on you, Dana?
Yes.
We're all in the bad habit, and Dana wasn't doing anything that I haven't done myself. Of the minute you're done whatever you were doing in your riding lesson, when you do come to the walk, you're so tired that you throw the reins at them and to give them a break for free walk, because they were good. And I told her that I wanted her to stop doing that, that every time she transitioned out of jog or low, that she had to walk a minimum of 2 letters or more in working walk on the bit before that horse was allowed to stretch, or she was trying to rest him in working walk. Would she please rest him in working walk? And we would walk him on the bit until we were done chatting and he was done resting, because they have to rest in working walk, and you've got to train them to do it. So yes, the coming up from the free walk. So if you can have a little pull flexion while they're down, you have a circle, so you're on the jog circle, on the stretch circle, so then you bring them up. And if you still have trouble, then you flex them a little tiny bit to the outside and you push them up into it, and then you gently straighten them out, and you can get this. And very slightly, you know, thinking about asking them to do this and doing it over and over. And you may need some supervision on, there are several really good ways, which I can't just explain because you probably got to see them and someone watch you do it, but getting your reins up correctly is a thing. It really is. So But does that give you a few more things?
Oh yeah, thank you. That was really helpful.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not your horse, you're not saying he just paces. That's not his problem. So this is gonna work. This is gonna work, I guarantee you. You just need to work on it. And you said yourself, you said yourself like I wasn't steadily working him in the walk.
Yeah. It's the exact same thing that it sounds like Dana was experiencing.
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
created this problem and now I gotta undo it.
She had a good lesson today. It was really fun, but Wrangler was going, "What's with this? I don't get to, hey, I'm used to dropping, hey, I get to
Yeah.
drop grades,
Yeah.
right?
He was like,
No,
what? Yeah.
no."
He was ready for that break. Yeah. I've been told before too, like I'd be walking around, they'd be like, you look like you're just sightseeing. And it's like true, like I'm just walking around, like not doing anything, like sightseeing. And it's like, nope, focus on your walk.
If you could,
But that brings me, we do have quite a few questions again on freestyle. And so
wow, I think
I'll
we should
start
do
here.
a master class on freestyle. We get a
I
lot of
know.
freestyle
Yes, we
questions, don't we?
should.
Oh,
It's
somebody's nodding down here.
Yeah, it's popular. So I know Emily had some questions about freestyle. I know Patty did too. So now we're getting to freestyle. So
Hey,
just
cool.
sticking here, Emily is asking, what are you looking for with each of the artistic merit scores? What is the difference between a good and a great score for each?
Okay. Well, on the top, on the right, on the artistic merit, and I'm looking right at it because I said to Dana, I'm going to print this out and have it in front of me, so I don't forget. Not that I don't know, but when you start talking in front of somebody, you're like, ugh. So anyway, first one is harmony. So the first score at the top, that is the one score which is directly related to the scores on the left, which is the technical. So if I look down at your technical and your technicals went like this, it went 8, 7, 5, 8, 7, 5, 8, 7, 5, 7, 6, 5, 7, 8, then that harmony score would have to be a 7, 5, or an 8, because that is directly, there is a relationship between your technical and that first one, harmony between horse and rider, because what we're getting at is, did you do it? Did you do it easily? And did you do it well? Now, if, for example, you were doing a level 1 test and the horse, it never shook its head, it didn't shake its tail, but how about this? It was never on the bit or in connection. It dragged its toes the whole way. It loped very slowly in 4-beat canter on its forehand. Now you guys had harmony because a rider didn't ask the horse to do the level of work that level 1 requires, which is continuous impulsion with some developing uphill balance. So people are afraid of that word harmony because they go, well, it looks smooth. But the thing is if your technical marks were 5, 5, and 6, you can't get an 8 on harmony over here. So that score is going to be very similar to the scores that were on the left. So let's say that you started out with an 8 halt, looked really good, or 10 even, but then everything else was kind of 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5. Then I'm thinking that harmony over there is going to be 6 or 6, 5. Does that make sense? We got that one. That's the easy one. Okay. Choreography, use of the arena, design, cohesiveness, balance, and creativity. Choreography is that it's balanced. You didn't do all of your circles at the C end or at the far end, or only mostly over here, or only you did everything going away from me. You have to think of it like a dance and a program. Did it look balanced? And here's the next part. Make sure that you design your choreography for C. I don't care about the spectators because they don't give scores. Some people are actually foolish enough to say, well, the people all sit on the side, so I'm going to make it interesting for them, and it doesn't score well because it's got to be in the perspective of the judge. So there's the design, there's the creativity, there's the balance, and the cohesiveness. Does it flow together and make sense? Now, choreography there are several parts to it, but there's all that. And then we're expecting that your program sort of has a beginning, a middle, of an end. And there will be a deduction in choreography if you do something that's illegal, you do a move that's too hard, you have too many weird circles that don't seem to make any sense, or you have too many movements that I don't have a place to score. So for example, over here on the left is the movements that I have a score for. Now you're allowed to do a few other things if you want to, but the problem is I have no scoring box for those. And the more of those you put in, the more confused I become while I'm waiting or looking for these. And that will actually cause a deduction in choreography. Now, choreography can also improve difficulty in that at the bottom, in the next one is degree of difficulty, but if you're talented enough to combine the movements together that are called combinations. So let's say you do a lengthening jog that's amazing. It looks like medium trot for dressage. And you're maybe only in first level, but you might be riding that beautiful thoroughbred of yours, and you could just and what if you went directly from that to square halt? In level 1, that would be unbelievably hard for a level 1 horse, but you put in a combination, and if it worked, if that combination worked, your choreography score would go up because it was creative, it was unique. Additionally, the degree of difficulty score would go up because that's harder than anything that's in the last level test of level 1. They're assuming that you're going to be competent to do the movements that are in, like, let's say you're in a first level freestyle, first level test 4. You have to be at least that good. You have to show that level of difficulty hardness in that test. And if you can do anything above that, you get tenths, plus tenths, plus tenths. Okay. So choreography is the design, the balance. Also, if you do stuff so either technically badly, or you place it in the ring where I can't see it. So let's say, for example, that you do actually know that you have a bad walk. You really do have a pacey horse, and you walk it down the center line away from me. That hides the walk. It does, and you might not get too bad of a score on it because I can't really see clearly that it's pacing. I sort of do, though, you can tell, but maybe it's not as bad as usual because I'm not as convinced that it's bad. So, but I'll take it off there because you hit it. Minus, that's a deduction. You were trying to hide something, and I saw that you hit it and you didn't show it to me anywhere else. Or if you do something that I just don't recognize, then it's got to be either bad technical work, which you probably will get a low technical score. And I had somebody a couple of weeks ago do a lengthen. She was supposed to do some counter canter, and she was supposed to do a lengthen lope. And she decided to do the lengthen lope in counter canter. And it wasn't a really good lengthening. So she just barely, I mean, if she sped up, my father used to say, I'd have to sight by a pole to see her move. Like I didn't, it looked like she just maybe working canter. It just looked like a bigger working canter. It didn't look like anything. And if I can't recognize it, I gave her a 0 for the lengthening because I judged it as counter canter. She was trying to do 2 things at once. Neither one really worked out. And she got a minus 10th off the choreography. So it can get really strange. So first of all, sometimes people try to be super, super creative with the choreography, and it is very hard to judge these. And I'm judging about 10 things at once, and that is not an exaggeration. So for those of you that want to be creative, don't. Because the nutty part about this whole thing is if I cannot keep up, you are screwed. That's the real reality. And I'm probably not supposed to say that. but I tell my students this all the time. And what we know, because we have statistics, because we have computers now, that there are lots and lots of people that have a little bit less creative pattern that is relatively symmetrical, that the judge can follow easier, and they get higher marks. Because what happens when they get super creative and it becomes too busy, the judges can't keep up and the marks go down because they become confused. Because I literally am judging the music. Did you deal with the phrasing? Is a horse on the bit, blah, blah, blah. Did it do the movement? And then the girl's got to find it over here. On top of that, I'm deciding if the music works, does it enhance? How's the degree of difficulty, and how's the interpretation? I'm up to 9 things. That's, and I'm sure there's something else I missed. Literally, I have to do that all at once, continuously. So actually, slightly simpler programs until you are absolutely convinced that you're going to, like, especially dressage people, unless they're going to the national finals, we actually sometimes change their programs a little bit. Like, we get them qualified with a simpler program and they just add a couple of combinations to make it harder for difficulty and get some creativity at the end. Okay, let's start with relatively simple programs. And then if you really are a kick butt competitor, as long as it's super clear, add some creative choreography, but be sure the judges like know what you're doing, because I can't guess. I cannot guess. And if I have to guess, you end up with zeros or marks down on choreography. It gets really strange. So we talked about degree of difficulty. Is we always tell people when you're beginning freestyles, you have to win the technical to win a freestyle. If you don't win the technical, you're not going to win it. So it doesn't matter what this other stuff does. I don't care how great your music is. I don't care how great your choreography is. If you don't have square halts and you're not on the bit and you don't do leg yield, this other stuff, that's all fine and dandy. It's great. It's like candy, but the cake wasn't under the frosting. So the cake has to be under the frosting, and then we get to the frosting. So degree of difficulty, we tell people, begin with a relatively simple program and do it really well, and you will kick butt forever. And then add a couple of difficulty things, or pick out what your horse does for sure reliably best and build some difficulty around those 1 or 2 things. And don't try to do 6 difficulty things. I don't have time to judge it. 1 or 2 things to make it just a little bit harder than the level 1 test 4 test is great. And you will succeed. It'll be wonderful. It's simple. That part's simple. Okay, music, suitability, seamlessness, cohesiveness. We all understand that we're looking for the music to pretty much match the horse. And if it doesn't absolutely match the horse, it just has to look like it sort of does. One of the things that is a problem that we are seeing as an industry is that man-made music by computers does not have enough natural variation to work well with horses. And we're finding that people that are selecting that kind of music are floundering, just floundering. But natural man-made music primarily has enough variation, because it's human, to be more effective with horses. And all of us that are really good with Audacity or computers and stuff can also, can change the tempo of a piece a little bit. The tricky part for you is that at home, maybe there isn't the crowd, or he's not tired, or he's not off the bit, and so maybe the tempo can be different at home than it is at a competition. So that's something to watch as you progress in freestyle, to figure out, hey, does my horse get up on the muscle at a show? He gets a little excited, and then his tempo is just slightly different from this horse that I spent all this time on this freestyle at home, where he's all relaxed and everything, and now his tempo is a little different when I'm competing. learning how to either adjust your horse and get through that, or adjust your program so that you've built the program for the horse at the horse show. Or if you're lucky and you're doing it at home, then that isn't an issue. But these are things to think about because they affect your performance. Cohesiveness in music means that there is, I use the word theme because it's simpler for me to understand. But when you come in, that this is a performance, you're going to entertain me and you're supposedly entertaining the spectators. There should be a beginning, a middle, and a finale, and those should be very clear. And there should be entry music, which is going to somehow indicate to me what the theme of your dance program is here. So cohesiveness can be considered that you have only Michael Jackson tunes, or you have all themes from all songs from the movie Oklahoma, or you have only orchestrated pieces from big orchestras with strings, or you have only marching band pieces, or you have jazz swing pieces. The problem for cohesiveness is that most of our judges are 40 to 80. I had somebody write a program for me recently that apparently, according to them, was the soundtrack of a movie which I had never heard of and never seen. If it is not absolutely, absolutely iconic, you don't take a chance on it. I always say to people, the theme has to absolutely gobsmack me. It has to hit me over the head, run me down with a truck, because I don't have time to even think about this with all this other stuff going on. It has to be so much of an American lexicon that everyone at every age bracket will recognize it. And for the young people that decide that these three songs have some theme which means some very hard, thing to them, I really appreciate that. And I know that this means a lot to you. And because of some heartfelt reason, you made this. That's almost making me cry. Sorry. But the thing is as a judge, I have no idea that I put this together. Maybe somebody would say, I put this together because these are my Grammy's 3 favorite songs. No way, I wouldn't have it's so meaningful to you. It's not a program that hangs together and I can't recognize it. And no, none of us intend to be offensive. We just don't get it. And we're judging all these other things. So it's got to hang together, got to look like a program, got to be clear, and it's got to hit me over the head and back up over me because I don't have time to even think about it. It's got to be totally recognizable what you're doing. Easy peasy because of all this other stuff going on. Now, also, one thing to think about in this is minus tenths or seamlessness, which is hard to understand. That's just editing. That is actually the editing of the music. And so every time we hear a dead space where you're writing, but you didn't use a fade, or you don't support the movement with some music because you had a blunt cut or something like that, that's a minus 10 every time. We're putting down little minuses on paper because we have papers in front of us and we're going plus minus, and we've got 5 or 6 of these things going on where we're going plus minus, and the deductions are by tenths on this side on the artistic part. So minus. If cohesiveness is way more than 1, it can be minus 5/10 to as much as 1 or more. It can be a lot for some judges if they totally don't get your program, if they don't like the music, if they don't think it matches. And also, it's not just matching, but it's enhancing, because I had somebody that had a really interesting music, but it had a very heavy downbeat on it. da-da-dum, da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-dum. And wouldn't you know, she's riding a beautiful, beautiful American quarter horse at the lump. And the downbeat was when the horse went down onto its last foreleg. And I was like, oh, horrible. It made this very beautiful horse look like it was on the forehand. Or if it was on the forehand, it made it look a lot worse. And the next part is interpretation. Does the music express the gaits, but also does it enhance the gaits? So music, suitability, seamlessness, cohesiveness, also does it enhance the horse? So for example, I got this monstrously lovely, huge, big, I got a workhorse and I'm coming in, and I got tinkle, tinkle music. I got tinkle, tinkle music, and I'm on this huge, like, destrier, like a war horse. No, and it doesn't enhance him. There is music that makes horses look quick. I'm sure you've seen that. It's kind of hectic and frantic. And well, that just makes them look maybe shorter. So possibly the judge would say did not enhance your horse's movement. Did it actually match the footfall? Yes. But matching the footfall is part of your goal in selecting the music. So interpretation is where we're looking for. In intro and basic, we're looking for at least 4 places within the test, both halts and the first movement and some other movement where the music phrasing clearly expresses the movement that you're going to do. Like, let's say Herb Elbert and the Tijuana Brass. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, those are phrasings. So you're looking, did the horse do a lengthening when they went da 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 da, or you're trying to find musical phrasing to support that. Or you can also use the music gets louder or it gets softer. Maybe it gets softer when they're walking. So you're looking to make a dance program using the music to support the movements. Maybe you get down to some little, you're going to do little pivots, or you're going to do some little turns on the haunches, and you have little music that goes, the horse is walking along, la 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 la. La 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 la, while it turns around. It made a change, a little phrasing of music, which enhances what you're doing. If you think of your program as telling a story, does the music tell this story? People always ask, do you want lyrics? You're going to hate me, but this is my personal feeling. No, with a huge no, like no, but they're not disallowed. They are not disallowed. But one more thing is they're distracting. I don't know what you're getting at. I don't have time to listen to it. For judges, and I have seen judges that sing along, sports psychologists tell us that if you're busy singing, that you're not processing. Like, I can't sing and process 10 things on your judging. If you see your judge singing, I don't want to see my judge singing, singing along. I don't want to see him singing along. I want him to recognize the music. The one thing about lyrics, though, that can be really, really positive, though, is in the entry, if there's some kind of a theme thing, maybe like Oklahoma, and they're singing, or they're singing for a minute because they're spelling out Oklahoma or whatever. That's cute, okay, in the entry. Or you use just a little phrasing of the words as an accent to something, like they come to a halt at the end. Robert Dover one time at the Olympics was playing Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and he was playing American themed sports music along the lines of Take Me Out to the Ball Game. And when he was all done, he comes to a salute and puts his hand out, and you hear the voice say, "Play ball!" And the whole crowd went bananas. It's awesome. Like, oh my gosh, it brings tears to my eyes now, but it was amazing. So you know, yes, you're allowed to have lyrics. Do I like them personally? And this is a personal thing. I hate them. I don't like them. They're just distracting. I'm busy. You know, they're allowed. They're allowed. But do we recommend them? I don't know any judges that will recommend them to you. I
Got
don't
it.
know
And
why.
then on that note, I love it, Ida, because I didn't even have to stop you because a lot of questions you just answered were Patty's questions. Because she
Really?
definitely
Oh, that's
asked
funny.
about audible lyrics. But I do want to, the one she has here too is, do judges prefer a Western flavor to the music presented?
No. And so then here's another thing. Because people mistake that it's Western, so I should do Western, we get a lot of Western. So after a while, they get tired of it. It's not that they don't like Western, they love Western, it's fine. But the other thing is a lot of, you know, really traditional classical Western music is kind of beer drinking songs, you know, they're kind of slow and whatever. And I'm like, they don't always match up with the horses. Um, I will tell you what I tell my students, which is not from the judging perspective, but I have sat there on the receiving end of the music a lot as a judge. And so, you know, when you hear the Jaws music, da 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 da, you know, you get tense. You're like, Jaws is coming. And we're very immune. We're not immune to the music that is negative. Like, I don't like the Darth Vader music, and everyone uses it. And there's some very dark music in Harry Potter when the bad guys come in. Unless you only want to use that as a tiny little accent in your program, I really tell people, you know, it depends on whether you have something that you're trying to say and this is about you. If this program is about you, then you select anything you want. Do your own thing. You know, I'll help you. That's fine. But if you want to have a great program and you want everyone to love it and you want to have a chance to win, there are two things. One, you got to win the technical. Number two, use cheerful music. When you come down the center line and you see me start laughing or smiling, you are halfway there. You are halfway there. That you, as you came in, there was something that made that judge smile because it was cute music. Who was it? Gail Mathis did a freestyle last year that her music was all the music of 1950s, like who was the guy that talked into a shoe, and he was an old detective, and well, there was all these recognizable television programs that people would recognize. And it started right out with, you know, ding-a-ling-a-ling, hello. And then she comes in. You know, you could hear the phone and ding-a-ling-a-ling, hello. And she goes down the center line and she salutes. Well, right there, you just started smiling and laughing because it was so unique. It was so, and when she was done, the song was, you know, saying hello, goodbye. You know, like I came into hello and now it's hello, goodbye. I mean, you're just like, wow, that was so cute, you know? So yeah, I love Western music and everybody does, but you know, Blazing Saddles is overdone. You know, so yes,
That's good advice. And I just want to make sure, Patty, that we answered all your questions, because I know you had another one about given, would you be given extra points for any of those movements that are successfully completed on top of compulsory within the freestyle time frame? Did we kind of answer that already for you, or did you have more questions about that?
No, yes. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting us here. This has just been great, and I think you covered a lot of things. I've been doing freestyle, and you guys are going to giggle. I do it on my Frisian, and my trainer, and my trainer. I know my trainer. When I said I wanted to do this, I did it for about a year by myself with my trainer doing it. I do all the choreography and I do all the music and everything. I raised in a musical family. Anyway, she liked it so much, she is now doing it with me.
oh,
So it's really good. So this was
That's-
my answers
that's the
were
best.
wonderful.
Yeah,
It's just wonderful.
I think our recommendation, to make it very succinct, is that anything extra outside of whatever is listed there needs to be something that you absolutely do super well and would add to the difficulty of your program.
Okay.
Because anything that's easier, there's no marks for it, so you get no credit if it's easy. It doesn't improve your difficulty score. And the judge is sitting there saying, well, what is she doing? Now, there are times when you have to maybe do some half circles or some, move. You're trying to move around the ring. So like last weekend, I saw somebody that did a lot of from E to X to B, these half circles. What she was trying to do was she was doing half passes one direction and then trying to reverse and use the half circles to get somewhere else to do something else. Yes, that was below her level of difficulty, but she was using that as an interesting way to move herself around the ring. That was okay if you don't do too much of it. But other movements, you get 0 credit because I've got no place to put it down. And literally, if there's no box for it, no score.
We don't want that. We don't want that.
Right. And, as crazy as it is, I judged, I don't know, 15. I judged 15 live in Michigan Sunday, freestyles from Grand Prix to intro. And as in every single test, the judge says at some point, do I have all of the compulsories? Meaning, do I have a mark in every box on the left on the compulsory? As soon as that's happened, then I start thinking about this other page, because this is so complicated that you have to get this all done in 9 or 10 minutes, and it's hard to do even for experienced judges. And so I know it sounds weird that I say to people, get it done and get out. And they think that I'm being mean or sarcastic. I'm not. It's the thing where people's attention span is short. We know that. And if you've done a good job, there's no more you can do. You just finish up your program, make a great finish, and go. And you know what I mean? Because last week I had somebody that she messed up her line of 3 time changes. She was supposed to do 3 threes, and she got a 4 on the first one. Then she tried it again, and now she's kind of wandering around with her music, not doing anything. So her choreography score is going down while she's retrying this. She got a 3 on the second attempt, and she tried one more attempt on the center line coming at me, which is really difficult. That really pulled her difficulty score down because that one also failed. So she had 2 4s and a 3. If she had done 1 and it failed, she would have had a 4. But because in her technical marks, she had 2 4s and a 3, her score went down to 3.5 on the left. So you see how that works out.
Yeah, not good.
You can mess it up, but you get 1 4 or 1 3 or whatever it was. But if you keep doing it and you keep messing it up, that can go down some more, and the other side keeps going down every time you try it, because your choreography is obviously not tight and it's not cohesive, that you're just wandering around trying it again. And that's clear to me that that's happening. And that's where it gets hard for people to understand until they really look at the test and see how we're scoring. Then once they begin to understand that, then they're like, I'm not doing that again. I'll just take 1 4 and I'm out of here.
Exactly.
I hope the center line was a 10.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I really thank you. This has been very, very wonderful, very knowledgeable. Thank you.
Glad I enjoyed talking with everyone. Great questions.
They were great questions. I definitely think we need to do that freestyle masterclass. I'm super intrigued every time we get these questions about freestyle, because I know nothing about it. And I'm like, wow, there's so much to cover in the freestyle. I'm blown away. I do have one more question from Michelle. This is a question that we do get a lot. So when should you move up a level? So she said she feels like she should move up maybe when getting consistent low to mid 70s. Is that a good goal?
It is. I'm assuming, what level are you in, Michelle?
Michelle, did you say you were in intro?
Intro. Yeah, intro and basic.
Yeah. Yes, we did intro. We did intro. Last year I did intro test 2, so I just did one test. And then I added the second test, intro test 1, for the spring kind of summer season. So now I'm kind of like, my trainer wants me to kind of do another one, but I want to get proficient in the test before moving on, but I don't know like when is that point.
Have you really only showed twice? 2 tests?
Oh, no, multiple shows.
Oh, multiple
Multiple
shows. Okay, okay.
Like in a season
see.
of showing. So like during the fall I showed it, about 5 times, and then in the spring, multiple times, different judges. So that's always great,
Good.
getting
Yes.
different judges, different opinions. And so, it's like at what point, I'm not going to be an Olympic star. I'm not worried about getting, 80s, whatever. But at what point is a good time to at least try it or introduce a new, level?
Right, and you are reliably getting in the 70 in the intro? In the 70s in the intro?
Not quite yet. So I'm like in the upper 60s, lower to mid 70s, but it's not been consistent yet. So I don't feel like I'm quite ready yet. And with some of the topics we talked about earlier about, you know, what does on the bit or collection or
Connection,
contact
yeah, or
mean, and
contact.
those types of things. I feel like it's like, but it's introductory, so they don't really expect you to master that yet. So it's like,
Oh,
I'm
I
not
know what
really
to tell
sure.
you. I
Okay.
know what to tell you about that, though. This is the part that's really hard for people to understand. You can get a 6 or a 6'5" with the horse not really round to the bridle. Okay, so a horse that's going freely forward and his neck just kind of hangs out and he's kind of in a natural frame or whatever. If he's active and he's accurate and this and that and everything else happens, you got harmony, you get a 6 or a 6'5". If you get him sort of a little round to the bridle, you kind of get a 7, sort of. But the thing is what you don't realize, what is unstated. So this is the part that's tough. So I talk to the committees all the time at WDAA, but if I'm not on that committee, I got no power on that committee. So I'm not, some of the committees I'm not on. And I'm like, you guys, what you didn't tell the people was, it's sort of like, well, like anybody can get a C. You're allowed to get a C. I can't force you to not get a C, but I can reward you for the work that gives you an A. What intro doesn't say is it doesn't require you to be on the bit, but when you're on the bit, I reward you. And those are those people that are getting those big scores. If you are getting in the 60s, in intro, there's only really three things to judge. The 3 things are how forward the horse is, active, how much do they use their hocks and carry weight on their hocks, how much on the bit are they are in connection, which they're not required to, but a lot of horses are, and then how accurate you are. If you're in the 60s, either a little bit of all of those components is missing here and there because you made little mistakes, or you've got something missing in one of those components, reliably missing. Because if you weren't, it would be like 7, 7, 5, 7, 7, 5, 7, 7, 5. And that test is a 72 to a 75. So where you're at is more not so much about whether you should move up, although I'm sure your trainer would like you to, and it's okay if you do, and it's fine, but you want to be successful. So you're asking me, and the advice is you need to look at, like I tell people, I tell my students, they go to a show or they go online and they get their stuff back, and then they come and they're going to have a lesson with me. And I go, before you have your lesson, their homework is to circle in red on the papers every word that's on there 3 times or more. If it says unsteady connection or the word connection or impulsion, it's going to tell you where the hole is in your program or in your training program. So for you, do you know what that is? Does he not stay in front of the leg?
Um, Yeah, because I definitely look at the comments, and like I said, since I've been doing the same tests for a while, for me it's kind of like, okay, these judges have said my hands are there's something not right with my hands.
They're
So I
not low
work
enough
on
and
that.
they're not close enough together. I don't even have to
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah.
it.
But but if I take the comment and then the next show they don't comment on that. So I'm like, okay, that's good because now they're finding something else, to work on. So I've kind of been working through all of that. We're always getting, I mean, we're not getting anything less than a 6. We get occasional 8s and 7s. It's just like you said, you want to be able
Getting bad
to,
marks. Yeah, you're not getting
yeah.
any bad marks. Yes. Okay, here's the thing. Just so that you know, the judge that doesn't remark on your hands, some judges are trained that they only remark on your hands at the bottom of the test under rider position and effect. Okay. There are judges that write it all the way through the test, and there are judges who don't. So just because you didn't get a hand comment about the height of your hands or how wide they are, or if they look elastic in the body of the test, that can be how those judges were trained. It's actually like a generational thing, like the younger ones or the more progressives. I'm not young, but I'm very progressive. We're trained to do this, but some of the others aren't. And they were told that they were forbidden and they don't, they just,
Yeah.
they do this, okay? Because
And
rules change for
those
judges,
where she was,
rules change.
with her neck, it was counter, and so my hands were actually crossing across the pole.
Oh, okay, well, you can
So
have
that
really
was
fast.
I was doing an incorrect movement.
Yeah, but you're going to be able to fix all that stuff really fast. So I think you're saying you have a little bit of equitation work to work on. That's going to affect your bend and connection. Your Frisian is probably naturally active. They generally are naturally active. So on Frisians, if they're naturally active, which they generally are, you just have to be sure that you keep the hocks under her. It's a her, it's a mare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a thoroughbred mare, yeah.
Oh, thoroughbred.
And she has a long back, but
Keep
yeah.
her hocks under her. Okay, keep her hocks under her. And then, so, you're exploring whether you're going to move up. So the next part, of course, is how's the lope? Because some people stay in intro because they're working on some of these other things, but some people stay a little bit longer in intro because they're trying to develop more confidence in lope and they don't move along so fast because it's the lope that's the issue. I mean, how's the loping for you?
Yeah, and I think we also do endurance. So out in the great wide open, it's great. It's easy. But then when I bring her into the ring, it's a whole another project. And it's just not flowing, it's not fluent, it's not, where I want to be with that either. So we have been working on the transitions with that. So, that's why I'm hesitant to jump into it because I don't want it to be a total train wreck until we're kind of ready. So what you're saying is okay. It's okay to hang out a little bit.
A lot of us hang out a long time, and sometimes it's us riders because we're working on, I want to get my horse more in the bit, and I just don't feel like I have them there. I'm working on my equitation, and I only want to do that in the walk and the jog because when I get to the lope, I'm busy dealing with the horse and my equitation isn't holding. So a lot of us, a lot of people, me, other people, all kinds of people all over the world, they stay in intro because maybe they're working on something. Then there's a whole segment of people that my horse is just not loping quite yet, or I'm not balanced at it. Or I even have people that are like, look, I fell and I broke my hip last year. I'm not loping again. I'm not loping right now. I'm frightened. I want to ride my horse and I want to show, but I'm recovering and I have post-traumatic stress syndrome. These are wonderful riders. I support them. I have been there. I've been injured. People have been injured. It happens to every single one of us. So go on when you're ready. Don't go before you're ready. It's okay. And it's okay to stay there. There's no rules that prevent us we can stay in intro as long as we like. And I actually had a student move a horse back down this year. She'd been doing some basic and some first level work. And the horse got ill, you know, and he's been recovering, and he's a good horse, and she wants to keep riding, and she wants to support WDAA, and she can go in online shows. She needed to go back to walk and trot because he's still recovering. And that's what they can do. And you know, she was a champion at level 1, and somebody actually sort of mentioned it to me. Well, she was in level 1, and I said, you know, that horse got ill. He's been recovering. She's here, and she's not loping again yet. But she wanted to support us, and she wanted to come in the show, and she wanted to pay her dues and be with us. So it's all okay. It's all okay.
Yeah. I feel like as long as I'm learning, like improving and learning something new,
Yeah.
then it's moving me forward.
Yes, and the more secure you are within your tests in the gaits that you're in now, so that when you do go to the lope, the better your half halts are, the more headset she has, you know, the more on the bits she is, the more accurate the test is. Imagine if you can get your intro test to all the time, pretty much a 70 and higher. Then if you think about it, that means that all of those parts of the basic test, you're only going to have the canter scores that might not be so good while you're just learning the canter. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I reliably get a really good center line, so I'm going to go in and get my 8 and do that. And then, well, we always turn a 20-meter circle in basic, and I'm really good at that. I've been getting 7s on that. So you go in and you turn a 7 circle, then you get to the corner and you got to lope. Well, maybe that's not quite so good. So she runs a little bit and she leans in and you get a 6. But, you know, if you get the other stuff really good that you've been doing in basic, and then you add in the canter may be rough for a while, but look at the skills that you got in intro by staying in it longer and getting it really confirmed. And then you work on the canter or the lope, and yeah, things will unravel a little bit, but they will get better. And they will, because you have straightened it all out in the walk and the trot and the jog. So I know you can do it.
Well, this was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ida. I really appreciate you answering all these questions. I just absolutely love these Q&As because I really think that these are just amazing questions. And I
Yes.
ended up learning so much through the Q&As because they may have been questions I never thought about, but it's such good information. And I want to thank everyone who came and brought the questions and participated with us tonight. We love having you.
It was so much fun to be with you, and I was so happy to see your faces and hear your voices. Thank you for joining in.
Thank
Everybody-
you.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody have a good night.
Have a great one, and good luck through all the rest of the season. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.